I kind of wanted to, in my own mind, because I'm a wrestling fan, I was going to open this up with, excuse me. But then I was like, man, what happens?
Oh my gosh, that's pathetic.
Oh, what? Come on, I thought it was okay.
No, you did go, excuse me.
Let's start this off by getting into, how did you kind of get into wrestling? So I've read up that I guess it was Eddie originally who got you into wrestling. Like before that, it was kind of like, all right, what is this thing? But going on a blind date with Eddie, he's in wrestling, kind of gets you involved in it, and you're like, I want to keep this guy around, so I might want to know a bit of his interests.
Yeah, when I was growing up, I hated wrestling. I mean, I was a cheerleader and a dancer. I had 4 younger brothers who always had wrestling on. But, of course, I only watched the cute guys. And, of course, like Randy Macho Man and the Von Erichs were on TV a lot. But, it wasn't my interest. But meeting Eddie on a blind date and knowing that he was a wrestler, I mean, he was gorgeous. And I thought he was really handsome. I thought, he's a keeper. But then later I found out that my family already knew the Guerreros because my grandfather used to make Eddie's dad's robes and boots in his leather shop in El Paso.
Oh, wow.
And Eddie and I used to play in the playpen. We were like 1 and 2 years old.
And like this, you never knew this until like you got a little bit older? Like,
when we started dating, my grandmother's like, I already know them. Like, I know who Eddie is. I know his parents. And so we always thought it was like fate that we were supposed to meet and, get married and have kids. So it was, I thank my grandmother for that.
Yeah, no, I just think it's interesting because so I kind of grew up watching wrestling, I guess, kind of in the peak Attitude Era. Now it's funny because it's like the Monday Night Wars, you have WCW on one side, and it's weird. It's funny to me because I'll remember watching Raw and SmackDown and watching like WCW, like just the Saturday night stuff, just because I'm at my aunt's and like that's where I'd see it. So it's cool to me to watch him kind of go from the WCW, go to WWE, and seeing the whole storyline that he had with Rey Mysterio. And then that's like kind of when you first got involved. And at first I was like, I believe I'm probably like 9, 10, maybe a little bit older, but like I'm buying the storyline. I'm like, what? Like, why are you doing this? Like, she's like, this is your wife. She's clearly upset. Why are you being an ass?
Yeah.
But I like how like when you get older, you appreciate these storylines a bit more. But I loved how that was your first role kind of into the wrestling. And then I was like, oh, she's playing this very well.
I don't think I was enjoying the storyline at first because it was really getting personal because my aunts and my grandmother and my cousins would call me and be like, I can't believe Eddie's done this to you. Like, how dare he have an affair and find out that he has a son, that's been in this world. And I knew what the psychology was. I knew what was going on behind the scenes, but I love the business so much that I protected it, to where I had to go along with my aunts crying and thinking bad of Eddie and calling him names. And I'd be like, well, it's okay. It's okay, Thea. I love him. We're going to work this out. And then, seeing this whole storyline progress with Ray's family and then bringing the girls and myself on screen.
Yeah.
Vince, he brings everybody in for the big, storylines, and he was very good at that. So when I got to work with Eddie, it was a lot of fun, but at the same time, I didn't want to screw up anything that we were doing because I had to go home with him.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because it's in a time before like social media essentially too. So it's easier to kind of protect it. But I love how I can just imagine it, like these Thanksgivings or Christmases, you're like, they're all looking like, you just scroll around the room, you got people like looking at Eddie like this, and you're like, if they only knew, but I can't.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, Eddie and I had fun with it, because to do what we love so much. And I just had a little piece of that storyline. Dominic was the star. I mean, pretty much. And you look at him today and I feel so old because I'm like, he's such a natural, and the whole family, and you have Aaliyah in there now. And, but, to have the whole family together and to have a great time behind the scenes is something that was just a great time on TV. So I really appreciated being a part of that.
you feel old. I go back and watch it, and I remember watching it, and then I'll say to my friends, like, I remember watching, and they're like, yeah, sure you do. I'm like, I do, and now I feel old because now this guy's actually in the WWE, and Ray's still there, and I'm just still like okay, like,
Yeah, and
am I?
I'm here.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
yeah,
I've gotten older, but I can just say wiser now.
yeah. Well, one of the famous things I like about that kind of feud, like now, of course, the build up to it, and I know like I kind of follow like Walk Culture and Cultaholic, sometimes watching videos. That's kind of how I keep up with wrestling today. But it's like they always show like either a botch or a blooper where it's like Eddie's on top, I guess, of the ladder, and it's like you're supposed to come out, and then it's like where the fuck is Vickie? And I was just still like, I feel like going like, oh my God, she's having that kind of, it's like, not the, when the Godfather was playing another role, Papa Shango moment where it's like, she's supposed to run out.
No. Okay, we're gonna stop right there.
Perfect.
Because
Stop me.
it wasn't my fault to not come out. Because if you guys watch the match, and I
Yeah.
explained this in the book that I'm writing, that they could not send me out yet because Ray was underneath the ladder.
Yeah.
And so for all this to happen, Eddie had to come back down the ladder and get Ray out of it and put him in the corner so I could run out and get to the ladder and push Eddie off. So people actually, Vince McMahon was telling me, hold on, you can't go out yet, just wait a minute. And so they're trying to tell Eddie, you know, you gotta get Ray out of the ladder, off the ladder from the bottom and get him to the corner. So just for record speaking, public knowledge, I did not fuck up my spot, okay?
Well, perfect. Perfect. I'm glad we got that out of the way, because like because sometimes when you're watching the stuff, it's like, you know, everyone has their own opinion of it, and I'm just still like, you kind of see it, and I'm like, okay, like, did she, or like, is someone just miscue? Because like there are times in wrestling that it does happen, and then you hear the folk tales after of like, no, that's definitely on her. It's like, and then you hear like, no, it's definitely not. So can you please correct that? Like, come on.
Yeah, I mean, I could hear Eddie from the ring in the back, like yelling at me, and I'm just like, I'm like, he's hating me, like he's gonna know that he's just pissed off right now. But you know, from the ref to talk to Eddie out there and get everything straightened out. So, because in order for me, when I ran out, I had to be ready to knock him off the ladder. You know, so I couldn't do that with Ray being underneath because I was dangerous for him with the ladder. You know, the way it was positioned. So just an FYI to everyone, I didn't screw up my spot.
I feel like when you go backstage, you're probably going to Ed, like saying to Eddie, like, what are you, come on, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, there was some conversations going on when he got back there.
No, it's like, it's one of those matches that I'll look back at, and like, you know, even with their WCW matches, like right off the hop, you can see they have real good energy, real good like in like ring work. He's had like good matches there, even with Benoit. So it's crazy though, because the reason that I bring this up with Eddie especially too is when I mentioned about going from the Attitude Era, like I grew up watching Austin Rock. That feud was, for me, got me into it. And then, you know, when they start getting kind of older, going off on their own, I was like, okay, like, you know, I like the whole storyline aspect, but like the wrestling's great too. But then when you look at like Benoit, Guerrero, Mysterio, you're like, wow, like these guys are doing stuff in the ring that I'm just going to be like, I'm not even trying that out in my backyard, because, you know, your mom be like, did you just try Hurricanrana? To who? Who are you trying to Hurricanrana? I'd be like,
I mean, you know, the magic of Benoit, Mysterio, and Malenko, and just these great, not only were they just family and friends, but these legends, you know, they made magic in the ring. And to go back and watch, you know, their matches is something that's a special gift to the fans and to the legacy of wrestling. You know, and to go back and be able to push Eddie off the ladder, you know, legally, any wife was not allowed to do that, you know, but I was like, this is my one chance to like get everything back to Eddie.
You're just there, like, you're like, when you're going down, having that moment, you're like, I gotta think of everything that, like, you know, the, like something they forgot, like the anniversary you forgot, or if you forgot to give me flowers, this is coming out, boom. And then like, he's like, whoa, take it easy. You're like, no, I have to. It's like, I have to play this card. But I just bring that up.
It wasn't hard.
No, I bring it up because like, so once Austin and The Rock go, it's like, Benoit, the WrestleMania 20 moment, obviously. I had friends over, we watched it kind of live, and I was like, this is so cool to see them where they started, where they're going. you're at a young age, so you kind of don't appreciate as much as when you get older. But you know, that's who I kind of kept on watching wrestling for. And then, you know, when you see the news of him passing, I was like, my dad showed me the newspaper, and this is in Newfoundland, like in Canada, they had it as an article, and I was like, okay, like that's a weird storyline. Where are you going? And then when it's like, no, this is real, I was like, you know, still not phantoming it in your
Yeah.
mind. Walking to school with a friend, you're like, I don't know where to go from here. Like, am I gonna watch wrestling? Because now my favorite two are like, you know, Benoit's still around, but it's like when even when Benoit goes, you're kind of like, okay, so what's like, what do I do?
Yeah, it's really a sad situation, you know, where of course, you know, granted, and every day you wake up, you know, when you wake up, it's a blessing, and you never know when God's going to take someone that you love. And it's always the good guys that are gone too soon, you know. And not only because Eddie was my husband and my best friend, but he was just, he loved performing. I mean, he loved the fans, he loved the business. And we never knew that. I mean, he just got clean. He had been clean for 4 years, and we were expecting another 10 years of, you know, him being able to enjoy this business, you know, clean and sober. So it was a big shock to the industry. And then, you know, to lose Benoit after that, it was, we don't understand sometimes, you know, why these things happen, but I just have to believe that there was a reason and a purpose for it.
Yeah, and I mean, like, you know, giving him full praise here. He was actually one of the first books when I was younger that I bought, like his actual like the book. And like you're in like junior high going to school. Like, you know, these are tough years in junior high where like people just kind of quickly grasp of what you are. And here I am
Yeah.
going to school, like trying to, you know, be older than you are, being like, well, I have a wrestling book and I'm going to read it. And then they're like, a wrestling book, you're going to read that, and you're just still like, yeah, why not? But it was interesting, like I can still remember some parts of the book where it's like, you know, when him and Chavo were wrestling, and at first it was kind of like, okay, like keep them entertained, keep the crowd entertained, and then to the point where it's like, you can no longer wrestle for intermission because people are sticking around. And I'm like right there, that should kind of tell you that he was born to do it, because people are not going like, ah, there's two kids in the ring, we're going to leave. Like I don't know why they're doing that, but like, you know, they're gone.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's you know, for Eddie's book, I still can't read his book. And you
Oh
know,
wow.
I mean, I was there during the whole time for the process when he was writing it and working with his writer. But to, you know, I still have the book, you know, on my bookshelf, but I can't read it. And my girls, you know, they've read through it. Because I can just hear so many of Eddie's emotions and his thoughts that he put into this project. And it's a very, it's just a great life story of his, you know, and he put a lot of thought into it. So it's something that I'm really proud of. And and today the fans are still thanking me for his book. You know, I just love his book, and he's helped me so much. And Eddie's story is great. I mean, it's just something that, you know, you have to have known him in his matches and got to know him as a legend to really appreciate the struggles he did and how he beat the demons.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I said, it was like one of the first books I bought, and like, you know, I'm again a stone, I'm like an Austin fan, and Austin has a book out, so like my brother bought that, and I was like, yeah, but I want my own kind of collection, so I'm gonna start here, and then like, I I don't know, I just really liked it, and like, you know, watching some like even watching some great matches of his or feuds, like I'm watching like some of the old WCW stuff for the amount of time that I kind of can, because sometimes the
Yeah.
network kind of craps out on me, but like it's literally watching some of the matches, and I'm like, okay, I'm young, so I don't remember it very vividly. But then going back and watching it, you're like, geez, like this is entertaining. Like what's going on? Like I know it's going down a rabbit hole, but it's like WCW. Like what are you doing? You had these guys here, and you just kind of let them leave. But I guess they're kind of like, you know, unhappy at the time. WWE took care of them, kind of helped them to their stardom. But like
Yeah.
I just thought it was very interesting. Like, you know, like geez, like what are you doing over here? But we all know what happened, so clearly.
Yeah, you know, yeah, there's a lot of bad days in WCW where, you know, our checks weren't being good. You know, you take them to the bank and they were outstanding. And the management and, you know, all that whole history has been said. But, you know, for the Radicals to jump to WWE was just such a fun time, you know, for the four guys to, you know, be a part of a bigger company. And it was Eddie's dream to be, you know, working for Vince. So, yeah, it was just it was a great experience. But then, that's when Eddie dislocated his elbow on his first frog
Yeah.
splash there, and you just kind of shake your head, going like, I just don't understand, how this can happen.
Yeah.
And Eddie wasn't fun for the first 3 months.
Oh yeah.
Getting operated on and waiting his turn to be in a company that was his dream. So, but eventually, it got worked out, and he was able to, get his stuff together. So it turned out to be a great story.
Now, what I kind of essentially like to kind of get it back on you as well, it's like, once he passed, sometimes it's kind of like you go through the motions of like, okay, what do I do? Like, where do I kind of fit into this? Now, I kind of give you a lot of credit because, from that one role in that kind of ladder match, it's like, okay, well, geez, that's all we're ever going to see of her. And now again, like I mentioned, I kind of fell out of watching WWE at this point. Like I still kind of watch clips and bits of AEW and WWE, just think, through Cultaholics, wrestling, all that. But
Yeah.
I really enjoyed how you came in with your own role and kind of created your own legacy with like the whole excuse me being like, and I mean, this is when you're younger, of course, as a heel or even as like a heel manager, heel GM, you want like nothing more than to like spit in their face, hate them, punch them, like, and like, you don't care. You're a kid. You're like, if I see her in person, I'm going to let her know what it is. And it's like, but she's playing a role. It's like, not to me. But when you get older and you appreciate, like, if you still kind of hate a person as you're older or like hate that kind of role they play, it's like,
yeah,
you kind of give them credit. Like, I know when I'm watching like Britt Baker, for example, I'm like, man, like I hate, but like, she's such a good wrestler. But like in my mind, I'm like, why are you like this? You're a dentist. Like, I'm sure people come into her dentistry and then they're like, not her. I don't like her.
Yeah. I think the only reason, when Eddie passed, me and my girls just kind of isolated from everyone and we're just trying to structure our life again. But when WWE called me, I asked them, I said, why would you want me to come to this role? And, but I was able to do backstage vignettes with Eddie and memorize the lines, and I wasn't scared of the camera. And of course I had Eddie by my side. So it was very comforting to work with him. And I performed before, through cheer and dance and, bands and stuff. So that part didn't bother me. I just was more worried about Eddie and what he was going to think, because he was such a perfectionist in his work.
Yeah.
But, when they called me and said, we'd like you to come back and, induct Eddie in the Hall of Fame. And then perhaps let's talk about maybe a role to help keep Eddie's name in the storylines with Benoit and Mysterio and Chris Jericho and Batista. Like, there were so many guys they were telling me they wanted me to work with, and I'm like, wait a minute, like, this is my family, like, these are my friends, and I don't want to insult the business. So I'm just going to stay. Let's just call it for 2 months. I'll go for 2 months, bring Eddie's name up, do a little bit, here and there, because I still have my girls. They were young, and I just moved to El Paso. But they said, okay, great, let's see where this goes. And 2 months ended up being, 10 years. And I loved it. I mean, because I loved watching Eddie perform, and I just love the company. I love the industry. I love the business. So for them to give me that opportunity, and I was finding my own talent, which I never knew I had as, a general manager or a bad guy. I was really shocked, but I really loved who I was becoming on TV, and I embraced it, because I think I watched Eddie too much to be nothing but a heel.
And that's, I mean, like, it's a great role. Like, sometimes when you see a heel on TV and you're like, okay, I can't really buy them as a heel, or it's like they're trying their hardest, but it's not working. But it's like, when I hear that, excuse me, when I'm looking at like past clips where it's like, Cena in the ring and they're just kind of like picking on you. I'm like, they're doing, like, they're picking on her, but like, she's clearly playing this character well. Like, that I feel like when they're backstage, everything's all laughs, all fine, good and dandy, but it's just, coming out and playing this part where people are booing you. But then, like, when you leave, like when you left the company, I'm sure they have like a wide appreciation for the role that you played. But do you ever like kind of, when you're in these segments, when you're doing the kind of excuse me, do you ever crack? Do you ever have moments where it's like, oh man, like the way that person's just looking at me, or the way that I said that, like you're kind of like trying to hold back a smile?
I think the only time that I broke character was, I believe it was Austin, Texas, and I was working with Dolph Ziggler and John Cena in the ring. And for some reason, every time that I would bring the mic to my mouth, the fans would just go wild, like to keep me from talking. And so, of course, John picks up, really quick of how, the fans are going to treat me. And I had a pretty big promo that night to try and talk to John. It was probably some reason I was pissed off that Dolph lost.
Yeah.
And so John would just keep telling the crowd, okay, guys, calm down, let's let her talk. And as soon as I bring the mic up, I mean, the fans were just so loud. Even the TV trucks had to turn down the mics
Oh, wow.
because it got so loud in there. But we went at least 25 minutes on live TV, like back and forth. And John was just egging the crowd, like, okay, guys, let's just give her a chance to talk. And the crowd was like not having it. And I had to turn around and look at Dolph, and I just smiled. I was like, this is crazy. Like, I can't even say what I'm supposed to say right now. And Dolph's like, it's not going to happen tonight. Like, we're not going to get a word in. But I mean, to work with John, and for him to have fun with me in the ring, we went backstage, and we're a family, we want to perform the best that we can so we can promote each other, make each other shine in the ring. So for him to say I had a good time, I was in good hands, in the ring with him and Dolph.
It's funny because it's like, the type of character that you're playing as, like, kind of a heel and a bit of a goofball as well. But I think like it works. It kind of speaks to you as a person to kind of like, because I know sometimes you'll hear like, oh, wrestlers have a big ego. Like there's all kinds of shoot interviews out there where people are like, well, bury Hulk Hogan, bury Ultimate Warrior, blah, blah, blah. But like when you have someone come in and they're like, yeah, like, let's do what we can. I'll have fun with it. Like you over time appreciate it more because you're like, imagine if you had to come in and be like, no, we're not doing any of that. Like, I want to be taken serious. And then they're like, oh, okay. Like, how are we going to work with this? Like, and then like for you to kind of be like, okay, like, yeah, you can tease me here, make fun here, have this, excuse me, go like kind of big, like have it famous, kind of speaks more to your character on and off camera, which I think is really cool. And I guess like I'm sure with both AEW and WWE, you still have people with inside kind of both companies that you interact with, your buddies with, because of like the personality that you present.
Yeah, I'm always a team player, whether it was food fights or, getting stuck, Stephanie McMahon vomiting on me or, some guy breaking my heart. It's all about being the team player and to be a part of that story. And, I got to work with some guys that were just amazing. I mean, just legends like Edge and Batista and, Jericho, and to just be a little part of that story or for that night. I wanted to give 100%. So whatever it is they wanted, it was up to me to either participate or not. And I was 100% in every night. So to be able to have them trust me and to be and to enjoy working with me, that's all I cared about, was that I was going to do well for them.
No, absolutely. I think it's kind of interesting because, like, again, once your WWE is over, and I like how even, you had the last match with Stephanie, and I think, of course, the thing that it's kind of interesting with the McMahons in a way, like, because it's like they won't ask you to do anything they won't do, kind of like that's the whole kind of motto that they build around, and I just think it's interesting because I'm like, well, geez, like, what about like, sometimes when you're looking at people's age, like Vince now, I know I've seen clips of him kind of showing like, oh, well, this is how you jump off a scaffold or blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay. Like you're almost like as a wrestler, like if he's going to do it, I kind of got to now because it makes me look bad. But like if he's doing it and I don't, but I just love the match that, of course, and you said, I believe in an interview, like it was just great to have like Stephanie kind of have the confidence too of going in a match with you and, having, I guess, a little bit of courage or knowing that, okay, this is going to work. I think it went well, like even if it's a farewell, but like, I just love the fact that even if a crowd kind of boos you as a heel on your way out, it's like, if they cheer you as you're going out, or like, either, or if they're cheering you loudly as you leave, because you're like, we're never going to see her again. Or if they're booing you, you're like, you did your job. Because if you leave and they're kind of like, oh, thank God, like I couldn't stand that, blah, blah, blah. You're like, okay, I didn't commit. This isn't going great. But
Well, I think
Clearly.
when people hate me outside the ring, then I've done my job, you know, um,
Exactly.
but you know, for Stephanie, you know, I gave WWE a year, you know, to give my
Yeah.
notice, and I
Yeah.
wanted to let them know that things were changing at the company, and I wasn't, you know, happy. And so, you know, when they finally decided to do like a farewell match, and Stephanie was able to do the mud match in a dress,
Yeah.
may I add,
Yeah.
I was and to go out with Eddie's music, you know, I was like, man, do I have to quit to get all this fun stuff handed to me?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this is, you know, but I was really happy I got to leave on my terms, and it was a good run, you know, but I wanted to do other things in life, and I just felt like there was more and I wanted to do in wrestling, but I wasn't going to grow anymore, you know, at WWE. So I just wanted to be respectful to them and just go out on my own terms.
Oh, absolutely. And I like the fact that, like, again, when you pop up in AEW, now I kind of feel like, and I hope it's not a shot at AEW in any way, but like I feel like AEW, for a part of it, it's like your alternative, like kind of like a WCW. Not in the whole downfall part. I hope it don't happen. I kind of think AEW is doing really well, but I like how they have, the people that were involved with WCW are involved with AEW, to the point where I feel like it's a better mesh. Like, it's almost like, okay, here's where we want to go with this. Here's what we want to do. And I kind of want to just implement, like, how did you get involved with AEW? Because I know, even watching like Dark Side of the Ring, I believe like you're good friends with Jericho. Even when you did your
Mhm.
debut, Jericho was like, Vickie, and I'm like, okay, as much as that's a character, I feel like that's very sincere of him to be like, I'm glad she's here with us.
Yeah, well, you know, first of all, you know, when AEW had started, you know, the EVPs like Cody Rhodes and you know, the Young Bucks, and you have Kenny Omega, they really set a precedence of restructuring a wrestling business to be for the better good of the talent. You know, Cody Rhodes, you know, having a lot of say of how the wrestlers were going to be treated was something that was pretty impressive to me, just watching as a fan at home. One was the schedule, you know, because there's just a lot of respect of, you know, working one night a week, you know, for a live show.
Yeah.
That just showed that he wanted us to have a personal life and to rest and to be good, you know, for the next TV. And just the way he has structured everything, it just says a lot from him coming from WWE, and also other, you know, other wrestlers and, you know, backstage agents, to say, you know, if you come over here, this is how we're going to improve things. This is how, you know, we're putting the wrestler first before the business. And I think that's really important. And also the creativity, you know, when I went there, you know, and they gave me the bullet points and they said, okay, go do a promo. And I was like, wait, there's no like 10 pieces of paper with a
Yeah.
promo that's like 8 pages long. And they really let us have the creative, you know, elements to promote our character of how we feel we want to be, you know, a set in that storyline. I think that just says a lot, because at WWE we were very controlled. It was very micromanaged, and that took a lot of the joy away, you know, from us performing our character. So with me being at home and watching AEW, I love the product. I loved watching it, and I was a fan, especially of the women. And of course, seeing my friends move over there, I was happy for them. I mean, this is like a new beginning and a new company that was appreciating the work that the wrestlers did. So when I got to do a few things for AEW, and I went on the Jericho cruise, and I got to get to know Tony Khan a little bit more, and us talking, you know, I felt really comfortable with him. And he, like he says, you know, he doesn't feel like he's at work or he's doing a job. He's having fun, and he literally has a smile on his face the whole 2 hours during the show, and even all during the day. And he's just a fantastic person, because he just wants to have fun and bring these storylines and promote the superstars that he has. And it's just a no stress environment. It really is. And so when I told him, I said, I want to work here. I love what you're doing. I love the women's division. I love what the men are doing, and I love the creativity. And so after, you know, especially during COVID, it was kind of, I didn't think anything was
Yeah.
going to happen. But when they signed me, I've had a smile on my face every time I come to work. And it's just a great environment. It's stress free, and everyone just truly is a loving family. And it's been a great time since I've been signed.
Like, I like how you brought up kind of COVID too, because I think when you have like superstars come over, like if the fans were there, you'd see like a massive pop or a massive kind of explosion. Like I feel like kind of the downfall a little bit, and it's not to knock on you or anything, but it's like, you know, when you do come out for your like the first night on your AEW, I'm like, if there's fans there, I would just love to see the reaction, because you know there's going to be a few of them that are going to like cheer and be like, okay, she's here, and then they're like, hold on, what are you doing? She's heel. We got to boo her as well. Like there's going to be fans that are like, yes, like Vickie's here, this is awesome. Then there's others going to be like, hold on, before I put my hands up and go cheer, it's like, oh wait, this is bad. This is not good. It's like boo. But like inside, they're still happy. They're still like excited that you're there. But I love how even in your promo, like you mentioned, there's bulletin points. There's not a big long page. And I think, you know, as again, when you grew up, I feel like in the Attitude Era of wrestling, it was pretty much like, yeah, go out there, have fun, do what you got to say whatever. But and then when it gets a little bit more, it's, yeah, you can see it's scripted, and you're like, oh, okay, this guy's, I'm sure he wants to say more than what he's saying, but he can't. Yep. But I love like how you said it's bulletin points, because I just love to know when you were doing your first promo, you brought in, of course, Eddie's line of, you know, lies, or, you know,
lie, cheat, and steal.
Yeah. So I'm interested, like, did you implement that yourself? Was it like a bulletin point that they gave you, or were you kind of like, you know, let me do it, I can do this?
No, you know, all Tony Khan and Cody and Kenny Omega, they just said, you know, this is our first time seeing you on TV. You're going to be the manager of Nyla Rose. You let us know what you want to do with with being a manager. And so, you know, I had to put a little bit of Eddie in there, and I wanted to implement the women's locker room with what, you know, I did with that promo. And it was just so much fun. I mean, you know, I go back to WWE, you know, if you've missed a line or important words or a point, I mean, you heard it when you went to the back, and it just takes a little bit of your love away of the business, because you know, we're human, and sometimes, you know, that's, things happen, and promos are good and nights are good and things don't go that great. And it was just, you get the silent treatment, and you get the days where people don't talk to you because things weren't read the way they wanted them to be read. But here, you know, when they say just be you, I go out there and I'm Vickie Guerrero, and I'm Nyla Rose's manager, and whoever we're, you know, going against, I get to put all those elements of what I feel that is important for the promo. And, you know, it's just a lot of fun, and I can relax and take my time. That's just the one thing that I'm just loving. And to work with Nyla Rose, she's a funny, impressive, and just the strongest woman I've ever met. And so to have that camaraderie with her and that collaboration, and she works so hard behind the scenes, and for us to keep creating, it's just, I mean, I can't say enough that it's like, I'm not going to work on Wednesdays. I am going to have fun, and we see what's going to happen for the night, and we play it by ear, and then we go have fun with it.
And I like how, like, again, like when you commit to a role, you're fully invested. But I like how, because again, sometimes when you're doing a promo, it's hit or miss. Like, you really got to nail it or you don't. And I feel like what you said, you're more comfortable when you can be yourself. And I think that comes out in that promo. But I like how you nailed it. And like instantly, you know, my reaction, to be honest with you, my reaction here was when I first seen it, I was like, I was happy. I was like, oh, there's Jericho. Jericho's happy. Like, it's very sincere. And then when you get in the ring, you're like, for all the women's division, it's like, you know, it's like, and then you're like kind of crapping on, like, it's like, she's going to steal your opportunities. I was like, I'm mad. I'm furious at her now. I'm like, I don't like her, but I'm like, she's doing this so well that I have to basically tell her that when we're on the podcast. It's like, I appreciate her as a person, and I love her role on TV, but there's still that line that I'm just like, when she's, if someone was like, said that to me in person, even if they're playing a role, I'm like, oh my God, like I hate you. So I don't,
you know, it's a lot of fun, but you know, it's taking a little bit of Eddie and reminding the people of who showed me the respect and the love for the business first. Cause everything's about Eddie, you know. I mean, when we got together, he didn't discuss the business with me for about the first 3 or 4 years, because he wanted to make sure that I was going to understand what it was like for this family business that they've been involved in for years. And I can see that, because they didn't want the girlfriend to come in, get all the secrets, and then go and tell the world that, this is not even true. So I respected Eddie so much that little by little he started, getting me on the points of the business and showing me and teaching me. So to bring a little bit of Eddie in the promo AEW, it's just reminding the fans that I love Eddie for what he gave me and his talent and legacy. But there's also, I'm Vickie Guerrero, and I'm going to be able to, go on my own and be my own character. And I like it because I'm kind of separating. In AEW, I am Vickie Guerrero. I'm not, part of Eddie, with being as WWE, so it's exciting chapter in my life because I'm coming as my own person, literally, by myself. And so it's a lot. I'm looking forward to seeing where we're going to go with my character.
Absolutely. And like, I don't mean like any sleight of hand or offense, and hopefully you don't take it that when I ask this, but like if Eddie kind of was still here today, was there any plan like for him, like, in wrestling to like, okay, I'm done at this point, I'm retiring? And I know these are all hypotheticals, but like, just say if he said, I'm going to give this another 5 years. So 2010, he says it's done, it's over. Do you think you'd still be involved in wrestling? Do you think you'd have?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay, good.
We talked about that a lot because before Eddie passed away, he was having he had a lot of injuries and his back was really messed up. And he had talked about that he would love to wrestle for maybe 5 more years. He wanted to open a school. That was his dream, was to, not just kind of mentor guys and to train them and to have something on the side that was his. And then, maybe be like a feeder for, WWE or another promotion that he could train these guys and get them ready to try out for other promotions. And that was something he always thought about. And, the agent part wasn't so popular when Eddie was around. So you see legends that were agents there at WWE. And I think that's something he would have been really good at too, was to be able to work within WWE, as an agent. But, seeing AEW, I can picture Eddie being there if he was around because I think he would he would have had a great time, just knowing how stressful WWE was. AEW would just been like paradise to him.
And do you think you'd still be like involved, like as much like in the promotion, like you being an on-air talent as well?
That I don't know because when he was around, I was the one who stayed home and raised the girls, and I was okay with that. That was our agreement. And that people say, would you have done this if he was around? And I don't know, because I don't think I would have ever found my talent, because if they had called me and said, hey, can we use Vickie as a heel or a superstar, I think we would have probably said no, because we want to raise our girls through high school. So I think I would have to say that I would probably let Eddie lead the role, and continuing his legacy. That would have been my choice.
Yeah, because like sometimes you don't know how those things are going to go. Like just say if Eddie's like the beloved face character, and like again, I'm not speaking for WWE or anything in that nature, but they do have a concept or tendency of like, okay, let's split up this happy little couple on TV. So it's like, like he's going out there like, I'm the WWE champion, like things going great, and the next minute you screw him over in a match, and next minute you get instant heat, and then it's like, okay, it's like, why'd you do that for? The fans gonna be like, so that's kind of what you're gonna do with her character? Like you couldn't make her be like the helpful assistant or the helpful.
You never know. You never know.
Yeah. The kind of other things I want to mention here as well, because I've kind of really liked the dark side of the ring. Like I like watching it. I kind of, as much as some of the stories are a little bit sad or like a little bit dramatic to look into, I mean, it's eye-opening. My kind of top 3 that I've watched, I like Owen Hart. That was a big one for me that I really liked watching. Benoit's one was big. Like I remember waiting a whole week waiting for that one, because again, I'm coming from 2 sides. I'm not a person that's going to like, give you a cover up of like, oh, well, this is how I thought, and now I think differently of it. Like I always felt when you were younger, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but like when Benoit passed and the whole situation, I was like, people are like, oh, that's terrible. He's an asshole. He's this. I'm just like, well, can we kind of wait for the whole story to come out? And then it's still a bit of a tricky situation, because on the one side we see, a notebook that's like a suicide kind of notebook, but the whole fact of like the brain injuries, and I'm on the fence of when I watched it, Jericho even saying, if you think we're going to like kind of idolize a murderer, stop right now. And I'm like, okay, I'm okay. You got me. Like I'm fully invested. I'm open-minded going into this. but yeah, it was still kind of hard to watch it and see what transpired. But in my mind, I'm like, this is a guy that once he kind of lost his best friend, it just spiraled, and like
Yeah.
really there. And like you mentioned some great points in it. Like here he is sitting in Eddie's room, going through stuff, like bawling, and this is a man that, like, cut and throat, like pretty much, like, high flying, just tough as they come. And I was like, okay, these are like signs, but it's just hard to watch. And I think in the documentary it's mentioned, like, of course, woman. I'm blanking on the name there. I feel bad, but
Nancy.
yeah,
Yeah, Nancy.
Nancy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like, when Eddie died, you were kind of in bed, and she was the one who got you out of bed. Said, "Listen, you got, like, as I'm gonna try to be bad humor here, but it's like, you got motherfucking kids there. You
Yeah.
treat your kids, and handing you, like, getting you all together. So watching all this, seeing your input, like, how do you kind of how did you get involved in this, and what's your take on it, like, now, per
Well,
se?
yeah, when I was presented, my nephew Travel called me and told me about the project, and I think I saw him at an appearance too, and he told me about this project. At first, I was skeptical because
Yeah,
you think about Chris Benoit, and when we were in WWE, he was not to be spoken of. I mean, we couldn't even talk about him or write about him on our social media, anything. And so when he slowly started letting me know that this is going to be our story of how we knew them as a family and friends, and to give a little insight of what he really was like. He wasn't this monster, which, the events that happened with him and his family, we will never be able to know exactly what he was thinking or what he was going through. But for us to be able to show the relationship of him and Eddie, and to see how much he loved his kids and Nancy, they were, just like any family, we all had our problems, and we saw them fight, and we saw them laugh, and we saw them, be romantic, and it was just, they were our family. And for us to have that opportunity to say, no, this is the beautiful side of Chris, that would give his house to me if we were
yeah,
homeless. I mean, that's who he was. And and to see the devastation of what was created with his family was heartbreaking to us, because we not only lost this legend of in the wrestling business, but we lost, I lost my sister, who was my best friend, and these beautiful, this beautiful kid that that we just love to death. But the one thing that I wanted to show was that, as Chris contributed so much to the wrestling industry, you can't take that away.
no,
I mean, as much as whatever the story was and how he ended the life of his family and himself, he contributed so much, and he gave everything that he had to the wrestling industry, and it wouldn't be to where it was today without him, Eddie, and all the past legends, and everyone has contributed to the industry. So I just, it was my chance to be able to talk about how Chris did have a true heart. When Eddie, had passed, and him and Nancy stayed with me for 2 weeks. I mean, like I said, I would find them on Eddie's side of the bed, crying, and in his gym. And I saw the true Chris Benoit that loved Eddie so much, like a brother. And you don't realize how much it affected him until, of course, you start seeing him get more quiet and
yeah.
isolate from everyone. But, that's something that, how do you handle that? I mean, what do you say to someone, hey, I think you're being really quiet, what's wrong? Because he was he was always isolated. I mean, he's just a quiet person. Now, if it was just me and Chris in the room, he'd sit down and just talk my ear off.
Yeah.
We would talk about the kids and whatnot. But, I think this was a wonderful and beautiful project, how it was put together. And for Chris Jericho to get, Nancy's sister and, David and everyone all together to be able to do this special. It was, I was happy to be a part of it, and they did a great job on it, and I'm very proud of it.
I think it's kind of interesting when they were when they got into all these details of his life, how he grew up. But yeah, when I seen that part in the video where you're kind of discussing, like, him just being on the bed, like, crying and stuff, I was like, and I think even Jericho mentioning he's kind of becoming a little bit caged off. I was like, in fairness of what you said, it's like, how do you tell someone, like, that's going through stuff, like, hey, you know what, you're kind of being quiet today. It's like, well, come on, like, you kind of can assume that I'm
Yeah.
quiet for a reason, or like this stuff is not, it's it's having a bad toll, per se.
Yeah.
But Yeah, like, and again, as I said off the hop, I'm not like a yes man here of going like, well, I'm gonna agree with whatever she says. But I mentioned to you off the hop, like, you know, once Austin and Rock were finished, Benoit and Eddie were kind of like the next coming for me to watch. So you can imagine for a fan like myself, once Eddie's gone and then Benoit's gone, you're kind of like, okay, well, where do I go from here with wrestling?
Yeah.
And I can be honest with you when saying once two of those left and the kind of mark that was left on wrestling at the time, I was like, I don't know, like I don't want to really kind of watch it anymore. But
Yeah.
then, you know, when you see AEW thriving and then when you see other superstars come up like in WWE that kind of pay tribute to them, whether kind of wanting to or being told, even if they're told not to, but they're still doing it, it just kind of gets you more invested. Like I believe now, I don't know your relationship with this superstar in general, but like I believe Sasha Banks says that like Eddie was kind of one of her favorite wrestlers.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people who have a deep following for Eddie, and they credit him to much of their legacy. And, you know, a lot of people loved him, you know, in his character or personally. So he left a great legacy, you know, and it makes me feel good when people, you know, contribute their hard work, you know, to watching Eddie and learning from him. And, you know, also in AEW, you know, at the last pay-per-view we just had at Full Gear, you know, you see, you know, Chris Jericho used one of Eddie's cheat spots, you know, in his match. And that's something we can do at AEW because he was our family, you know, and
Yeah.
he's our friend and he's part of us, you know. So to bring these little tidbits of what Eddie used to do and to use them, you know, at AEW, they can't take that away from us, you know. And Jericho just has so much respect for, you know, Eddie, that when I see that, I just sit there and smile, you know. And hopefully one day I can use one of his spots, you know, to win a championship. And, you know, I'm working on that, you know, but it's fun, you know. It's something, if everyone has taken something to use of Eddie's, it shows the respect and love that they had for him.
Now, in using one of those spots, I feel like it's a protected spot. So I'm wondering, like, are you going to do it as a heel? Or are you going to do it as a face? Like, I feel like you could do it both ways, but it's just imagining, like, you know, you helping the person win a belt by doing like the lie, cheat, and steal, and then like the fans like, oh, how dare she pulled an Eddie on us, and then it's just like the fans like, let her do it, like they're like applauding, but at the same time it's like they're like, boo. But
it's a love-hate relationship. Yes,
yeah.
It is. Yeah.
The last kind of few things I want to get into, if you don't mind, with the interview is I kind of want to talk about you know, you personally, like, where do you see yourself going with AEW? Like, it sounds like you're having a lot of fun. Sounds like it's very relaxed. I can tell just by the big, beautiful smile you have that you're loving your time there. Yeah. But what do you see yourself doing? Like, how long do you think you're going to be there? Like, what are some future plans you hope to do in AEW?
You know, one thing I would love to do is build a stable. You know, at WWE, I had different storylines that, you know, one after the other. You know, I want to take after Taz and Arn and, you know, and Tully Blanchard, to have like multiple people in one stable. And we're working on storylines to collaborate with that. But I think the biggest blessing I would love is to work with AEW behind the scenes, is, you know, whether it's a female liaison or administration or something to help with their company, you know, into promoting the product worldwide. I would love to be a part of that. I believe in the company. I believe in Tony Khan. I believe in how they just are, they want to promote AEW to build this empire of, you know, bringing the fans the best entertainment, and, you know, and possibly have another TV show. I would love to be behind the scenes in that too. So yeah, my dream is to be a superstar first, or if I can work, you know, behind the scenes, I will take that in a heartbeat, because it's just, the whole organization is just amazing. And I sit back and going, I want to be part of that too. So I'm having fun as a superstar, but if they want me to be, you know, something later on, I am more than glad to accept.
Look at this classic Vickie, just open to anything, just like, you know, just happy. It's like one of those kids when you go in the room, it's like, I'm just happy to be here, but sure, like now that I'm here, it's like, what can I do?
Yeah, I mean, I'm 52 right now,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I can only get beat up for a few more years.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so I would like something behind the scenes where I don't have to worry about being chased or, or found in
Yeah,
some
yeah.
corner.
Yeah, it's like as much as like you respect like you're Mae Young, it's like you don't want to be getting put through a table at like 80 years old, and it's like, are you okay, Mae?
Nope.
It's like, I'm okay, but that's because I'm crazy. Like, I'm Mae Young.
I used to watch her go down that ramp, and I used to take care of her in the in the bathroom and the dressing room, and help her with her bags, and and I respected her so much because she loved the business so
Yeah,
much. I love the business too,
yeah,
but there's going to be a point where I want to keep my dignity
yeah.
and to, know when to say when. But, yeah, that's just my dream right now, is to know when to say when, and then just keep continuing with the company in some other, form of production.
It's crazy to me because when you think about like people's legacies and like, like some like, and it's no offense or no harm to certain wrestlers. Like some of them, like, they're around for the 90s. That's it. You know them in the 90s. Some of them are like 80s, 90s, 2000s, and that's totally up to them. But it's just cool to me. Like when you're talking about Mae Young there, it's like, there are those that remember her in her early days of wrestling. And it's like, like, okay, whatever. And then there's people like myself that all we know kind of Mae Young is, yeah, we treasure her, we idolize her for like what she's doing in the business. But like you're thinking there's like, you have a new respect for like a chair shot to like the head, like a guitar shot from Jared. And you're like, if my nan was in the ring and doing that, I'd be like, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, I love it. I'd be like, I know you love it, but come on, like just
Yeah,
ease
there's
up.
a line in my life that I'm gonna
Yeah,
be like, I'm done.
yeah,
But I mean, the most important thing I'm doing for my life is that not only being a part of AEW, but I have my podcast, and I'm writing my autobiography right now, and to be able to be in a role of being a motivational speaker, and my heart is with families that are going through drug abuse and addictions. I want to be that person that I'm able to speak of my story and help others find their way to living a clean and sober life. So there's other things I want to do in my life, and so if I can continue with AEW and still build my Excuse Me brand,
yeah.
that's something that's really important to me.
I feel like I feel like this could be a top selling shirt in AEW, but it's like an excuse me shirt, like, like have that ready to go.
Yeah, well, I trademarked Excuse Me, so I have the rights to that.
Oh
And
wow,
I
okay.
have merchandise. I have my podcast is called Excuse Me Podcast, and I'm really building my brand. So it's something that I'm really proud of, and I never thought that I was going to be able to do this, but I was determined, and so Excuse Me is mine. So I'm going to run with it.
Well, that's good. And of course, like again, I want to kind of promote your material as well here, because again, I know it's podcasting, and it's like a podcast world where it's like you're on mine, like we're talking about mine all the time, but no, I don't like that aspect at all. So like, explain a little bit how your podcast came to be and what you talk about, because I know you had Chris Benoit's oldest son on, I believe, for an
Yeah.
episode. And again, to kind of tie it back into the dark side of the ring, but again, promoting your podcast, like I like how in the end, like again, it's TV, it's good for like people to see it, but like they never really have Nancy's sister and Benoit's son in it till the very end, where he kind of has these breakdown moment and she's there, and I'm like the whole time, like, are they okay? Like, do they connect with people or connect with each other? And to see that was great. But I love how you
Yeah.
have him on your podcast, so I'm assuming you guys are still close, and I'm
Absolutely.
glad he has a support group around him. But like, what kind of things do you talk about in your Excuse Me podcast? Like, I feel like a little bit of a joke here before you mention it. It's like, it's almost like, these are all the things that I say excuse me for. And I'd be like, I still listen to it, but I'd just be like, I was expecting more.
My podcast is something that was presented to me from Jerry Strauss. He's a producer of many podcasts. And he said, hey, I'd love to, use you to do a podcast. I think you'd be great. And I never thought it was going to work, but I just celebrated my 1-year anniversary. And my podcast is not just about wrestling. I have actors and politicians and musicians and comedians. I mean, I just want to have a whole variety of entertainment, but mostly I focus on the wrestling industry because I love learning about these new up and coming, wrestlers that are young and they're getting into the business. And it's my opportunity to be able to show a little bit of my experience and give some advice to them and to hear their story and to see how some of my guests have gone from the indies to AEW into WWE. This is what success is about, and I love for that 1 hour to highlight them. And it's a chance for me to be able to show the world that, you know, I don't just talk in the microphone. I talk in the microphone to get to know people and to share their story with the world. And there's a lot of stories out there that have been triumphs and successes and failures, but it's for a chance for them to just to let the world know, you know, this is how I did my story and this is how I found my success. And it's something really rewarding because these are my friends and I've made new friends in the podcast. So to be able to share that and to do it, and I do all the work now because I'm by myself in this, it's rewarding and I like it a lot.
That's going to do it for this episode of Tobin Tonight. Our thanks to Vickie Guerrero for coming on to the show. Remember, you can find past, present, and future episodes on TobinTonight.com, Spotify, and iTunes. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and leave a comment or two. For Tobin and myself, this is Jacob saying thank you for listening and good night.